book is called Smoke, Fire, and Angels, Tragedy on Avon Mountain and the Life-Changing Aftermath. Here now with the author, Mark Robbins, who not only wrote the book, but survived his crash. Welcome. This was an ordeal, July 29th, 2005. Right. The good news for you that you don't remember most of what happened there, but talk about what you do remember.
Well, I don't. You're right, Stan. I remember heading to work that morning and thinking that I remember scolding myself, thinking I should have left an hour earlier because I had a lot of work to do. And next thing I knew, I was in the emergency room. So I'm very, very fortunate. People in cars all around me were killed that morning. And, once I understood everything that happened, I thought I really want to try to do something to, in the spirit of what the rescuers did that morning, try to help. Yeah,
one of Connecticut's worst crashes ever, right, in the history of the state. 5 people dead, many injured, a lot of talk about changing policy and changing safety zones, etc. But at the end of the day, you said, let me do a book, but let me focus on the heroes and the victims' families. And not only that, all the proceeds go to the families. So talk about sort of the genesis from being injured to writing the book.
Well, I mean, what struck me was, once I started doing some research, was that the 5 people who died were great people. I mean, they were really, really good people. Chip Stotler, special ed teacher at the Jengler Center and the campus of West St. Joseph in West Hartford. It was just a great teacher. Everybody loved Chip. Had 5 little girls the morning of the crash, ages 3 to 8. Left for work that day and never came home again. And it's just so sad. I can talk about each of the people. They were great. So I really wanted to do something that would honor their memories, and I, at the same time, wanted to talk about the rescuers. 300 people just descended on the scene to help their fellow man, total strangers, and they put themselves in harm's way to help us, and I'm just very, very appreciative of that.
Including a person who helped you, a young person. Talk about that. Who saved you?
Kyle Caruso, 21-year-old maintenance manager at Avon Old Farms Hotel. Thought he had left his car window down, so he went out into the parking lot, sees the big plume of smoke from the crash, comes running over and puts himself, I mean, at that point, the truck had exploded, the bus was still lurching forward because it was still in gear, and it was in danger of catching on fire, and so there's all sorts of chaos, all sorts of danger. And he went right to my car and started digging through all the debris to get at my seatbelt release button to help me. So I'm very, very grateful to Kyle and several others who helped me that day. Just amazing.
Do you keep in contact with him, or does he now?
Yeah, no, Kyle's doing pretty well. And yes, we do stay in contact. He's a good guy, and I'm just very grateful to him. So
yeah. Now talk about guilt. I'm going to imagine that when you understand what indeed did happen, there has to be some guilt. Was there, and how do you reconcile all that?
Are you talking about the guilt of the people responsible for what happened?
No, the guilt that you survived.
Survivor's guilt?
Yeah. Or is there guilt that you survived and others didn't?
Some people have said I have survivor's guilt. I've really poured my energy because I've read about other situations, and it's easy to put yourself in a very negative state of mind. I'm in a position where I can do some good, and I've chosen to put my energy in that direction. So I'm sure I do probably suffer from survivor's guilt. I'm not quite sure I understand what that is, but I'm in a position to do something. I have a communications background, so I knew I had the wherewithal to get something like this done, and I thought it would be a good way to raise some money, and that's what's been happening. So we still have more to go, but we're getting there.
How therapeutic was it for you to write this book? How cathartic was it for you to get your thoughts out, talk about victims, the families, talk about the heroes? Was that part of the healing process for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have no question that's been therapeutic for me, and it's been really a privilege to get to know these families and to have them trust me enough to share their stories of their loved ones. And I would not have been able to write this book without that kind of help, so I'm very appreciative of that. There are aspects here, though, again, that if I had an opportunity to talk a little bit longer about it, I think there are things we can do, all of us can do, similar to what the rescuers did that day to help, and I'm hoping to shine a little more attention on that.
Well, like what? We have a little time here.
Okay. Well, give me one example. I will give you one example that I think, frankly, is a disgrace. In 1993, the Connecticut State Legislature voted unanimously to pass a bill to get uninsured motorists off the road. That's a good thing. But they put in a specific exclusion, a loophole for trucks. So Stan Simpson, if you or Mark Robinson, if we canceled our liability insurance, our insurer would be required by law to contact DMV, and we'd be under a lot more scrutiny, and we certainly wouldn't be able to re-register our vehicles. But if you happen to own a fleet of monster trucks, and if you happen to be a guy like David Wilcox who had over 1,100 safety violations, don't worry about it. The Connecticut legislature's got your back covered.
Would that change, though? Did they ever change that?
They changed it 2 months after the crash.
Right.
But what good does that do to Stotler girls?
Right. And Wilcox did serve time, right? He was sentenced.
He's in prison right now. He'll be in prison for the next 6 years.
He was the guy who owned the fleet of trucks. He was the guy who owned the company.
Right. But I want today's legislature to make up for what that 1993 legislature did, because without that loophole, that truck either would not have been on the road, or if it was on the road, it would have been properly insured. So these people who lost loved ones, not only do they go through the horror of losing a loved one, but they're suffering a financial penalty as well, and that's not right. When that bridge collapsed in Minneapolis a couple of years ago, within 1 year, the Minnesota legislature acted to take care of those 13 families who lost loved ones that day. Are the people in Minnesota more fair-minded and compassionate than the people of Connecticut?
So in 30 seconds, make sure I'm clear. Is that law passed now? Do commercial companies have to disclose or not? Because we have about 15
within
seconds.
2 months of the crash, the loophole was closed, which proved that there was a mistake made by the...
Okay, so that's on the books now. That can't happen again.
Correct.
And real quick, you have Jim Calhoun, who's an endorser. You broke 6 or 9 ribs. Tell a quick story on how Jim Calhoun became an endorser.
When I read about Coach Calhoun breaking 6 ribs in his bicycle crash, that's the same number of ribs I broke. I sent him a quick note: "Dear Coach Calhoun, welcome to the 6 Broken Rib Club." And then I shamelessly begged for an endorsement. Amazingly, he called me 2 weeks later and agreed to endorse the book, and he's coming up to ING tomorrow to sign some books. He's a great guy. I really appreciate his help. All
right. He's Mark Robinson. What you're doing is important. The book, folks, is called Smoke, Fire, and Angels: Tragedy on Avon Mountain and the life-changing aftermath. All the proceeds go to the victims' families. So here's the book, and if you have a chance, check it out. Thanks to all our guests: Dan Malloy, Desmond Connor, and Mark Robinson. You can send your show comments or requests, or even watch us again at ctnow.com, and friend us on Facebook. Become a friend of the Stan Simpson Show. We're on Twitter too, so look out for our tweets. Lori Perez and The Real Story are next for the good folks here at Fox 61. I'm Stan Simpson. See you next week.